Okay, let me just check if we are already live on Facebook. And I can't catch up with technology.
I think we're live.
Are we?
There's a live button on the top left-hand
Oh
corner.
yes. I think so too. Okay, we are live. All right, great. Oh, phew. Okay. So hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. While we wait for more people to come and join us today, I'll just give a bit of brief introductions of myself first, and then I'll go on to you, Cheryl. Yeah, so I am Marilyn and I am from Turnique, and Turnique is a online brain gym and a mental fitness community where we have got almost classes every evening for 15 to 30 minutes where we basically do simple practice together as a community, either by mindfulness or breathing exercises to more challenging things. For example, we explore why do we think things in a certain way and why do we react in a certain way and etc. So Turning on Air is a series of chats that we started last month, basically to connect with different people in different walks of life, talking about personal experience, talking about professional opinion, and sharing knowledge and stuff. So, so today I'm so excited to have Cheryl with me, and we will be talking about how TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, sees emotions, and and yeah. So Cheryl, do you want to say hi to everyone?
Hi, Hi, Marilyn. It's such a joy to be with you here today. It's always great seeing you, your smile. I'm so excited as well to be talking about one of my favorite topics, the five wills and the seven emotions. So I can't wait.
Okay, then let's get started then. Will you okay,
Sure.
first of all, will you be able to kind of share with us a little bit more background on how, from a TCM kind of perspective, how does TCM sees emotion?
Absolutely. So emotions for us are more like we see them as symptoms, like natural productions of the body, out expressions of what's happening inside. So our five wills, the seven emotions, go as far back as spontaneating, which is the start of Chinese medicine, basically, where it talks about the five wills. So the five wills are basically the normal emotions that, or the normal expressions that you see from the body, and then the seven emotions are basically the pathological, more towards the pathological side. So how do we see illnesses and emotions, and how that affects the body? So yeah, it's for us, it's very visceral. Like emotions sometimes are an expression of an illness inside, or it's just a um, normal pathway. It evolves in a certain direction, basically.
So for you, do you have a lot of patients or a lot of your clients go to you with issues that, okay, so it's kind of like a chicken or egg, right? So if someone asks you, is it that you get physical health, is it that there is something wrong with your physical health, like your organs, that's why it causes an emotions, or how does emotion have another impact, like switch sides to physical health?
That is a great question. Most of it, sometimes I do get patients who come in that um, talk about, okay, I have a trouble with anger, but we very rarely get those patients. Most of the time, you come in with a physical symptom, so like back pain, headaches, dizziness, and then while you're sitting here and we do the full diagnosis, so that's the pulse, the tongue, we ask about your symptoms, and then you can sometimes see a little bit of that um, the emotional impact on the body. And then we will ask about, how do you feel on a regular basis? Or do you sometimes feel that you get very angry very easily, or you can't stop yourself from crying? And then that's when they realize that, oh, actually, I do have a little bit of an emotional impact in my life. Yeah, then it unravels. So we do have some people who outrightly come in with conditions that we know have emotional impact or have an emotional root. Some of the more common ones are like fibromyalgia, headaches. Sometimes we notice that there is a direct link. So when you get angry, then the headaches come on, or when you get stressed out or frustrated, then tinnitus, like ringing in the ears, get very loud. So we treat that from an emotional aspect and also in a physical aspect.
And just now when you were saying about, the 5 wheels and the seven
Emotion.
seven emotions, right? Would you be able to share more about what is the 5 wheels and what is the 7 emotions?
Yes. So the 5 wheels are basically your 5 basic driving forces. That's why they're called 智, or wheels. They make you go in a certain direction. They make you do certain things. So the 5 basic wheels are anger, happiness, or joy. There's sadness. There's fear, and then there is fear, and then there is also thought. Yes, sorry. So those are the 5 basic emotions, and they drive you in a certain way to present certain either outwardly expressions or affect you to do something in a certain way. They are normal. That means that, for example, if someone does something wrong, you should feel angry, and then it fades away after that. So it's a normal reaction to an external stimulus. Then you've got the 7 emotions, which are basically pathological. That means that you notice that, oh, suddenly you've got physical symptoms that come in with the emotions. For example, when you get very too happy or overjoyed, then your heart starts to palpitate. Or you have trouble sleeping, and then you realize that it's usually after you watch a comedy show. Or when you get angry and then you get headaches, or you might even lose consciousness. So those are more of the 七情内伤, or the 7 emotions and how it affects us internally. So we use these two balances to see if, whether a symptom is from an emotional aspect and how we should approach it. Yeah.
This is so fascinating. Like, how would you be able to know if it stems from emotions or not?
So that's that's the exciting part, actually. So for Chinese medicine, we have one basic theory. To me, Chinese medicine is a huge category. It's a categorization of different symptoms. It helps us to see very quickly where a certain illness comes from. So it allows us to attack the root of the problem. So we have the 5 elements, 木火土金水, which is the wood, earth, fire, metal, and water. And each of them represent a cardinal organ. And under each organ, you have specific symptoms as well. So likewise with those symptoms, your emotions also go and affect a specific organ. For example, so the anger affects the liver, happiness or joy affects the heart, sadness affects the lungs, thought affects the spleen, and then finally fear affects the kidneys. So when that emotion comes into play, when it first arises, and it fades, that's natural. So it doesn't produce any symptoms. But when that emotion becomes prolonged and sustained beyond the ability of the body to control or to eradicate, then it causes symptoms to appear. So, for example, anger is under the liver, and this is one of the more common ones with my patients.
That's what I have, I think. I think the last time the last time when I see you, I remember that I was trying to internalize a lot of anger, like trying to control a lot of things in my life and frustration. I remember you tell me that my lungs is a bit overworked.
Yes, so that's got to do with the liver system. Basically, when you have a lot of frustration and anger, that directly affects the liver. And the liver is the one that is in charge of the movement of qi within the body. It is also in charge of certain parts of your body, like for example, the ears. Oh no, yes, correct, the ears. So sometimes when you get angry and then it goes beyond, like the anger sustains for several days, and sometimes that happens. You know, you're at work, someone gives you something that you don't want to deal with, you get angry, you hold it in, and then suddenly headache appears, or you start to get ringing in the ears. So those are more direct effects of emotion on the body that you can clearly tell. I got angry and then I had this emotion. So similarly, like for example, we have a saying, right? We're saying like, "Oh, you shocked me. I almost pooped myself." Like that kind of emotion. Yeah, that directly affects, because shock affects the kidneys, and the kidneys tend to, no, sorry, fear affects the kidneys, and the kidneys tend to drive qi downwards. So we say 统则气下, or the qi flows downwards, and then that makes you diarrhea, something like this.
Oh my God. So you
Yeah.
so you have got so you have got anger that links to the liver,
Liver.
and then
Yes.
fear is to the kidney, and sadness is to the lungs.
Yes.
Thoughts
Correct.
is thoughts is to the spleen, and then the last one is your joy is
Heart.
to the heart.
Yes. So
Right.
some other examples will be, for example, you have something on your mind and you're thinking about it, you're planning, you tend to skip meals or you don't feel like eating.
Mm.
Or if you're crying, maybe you just went through a breakup and it's very hard to not feel sad, and you cry for several days, and then after that you feel completely exhausted. Or most
Mm.
of the time when people are in deep grief and they're crying, you hear something like that they can't catch their breath. So
Mm.
that's how Chinese medicine has seen these symptoms and classified them together under a cardinal organ.
And is this classification based on like an experience? Okay, so because I come from a Western, I mean, I'm a nurse, right? So I come from a Western training background, and I'm trying to understand a bit more, like, for example, with our body, there is a lot of blood streams that connected. Is this something that has, like, how is it that they derive these five emotions to these five organs?
That's a great question. Basically, Chinese medicine is based, I really feel that it's based on empirical evidence. We observe, then we make the connection. So Chinese medicine is a black box theory. We observe from the outside, and then um, we make educated assumptions on what
Mm,
happens inside. Um, and this is mainly because we respect the body. We had this old taboo that we couldn't open up the body to see what was inside. So it's mostly what we see as the symptoms, and then
mm,
we classify them. And then, of course, there is the other aspect when you start treating a particular organ and you realize that it works. Then you know, okay, so this goes under the kidney. When I treat the kidney, my sadness becomes better, or when I treat the kidney, I no longer have to urinate so much, and so on and so forth. And that becomes canon. So it becomes it is accepted, it is then not experimented, but it is utilized, and then it's confirmed through positive feedback. Like you see, and oh, it works, and then it becomes canon over
mm,
many thousands of years. So 《黄帝
right.
内经》《本草纲目》, they're not written by one person. They were written by many thousands of physicians who collected all their data, and then we just comprised it into one book. So That's why there's no one author for each of these books. So similarly with our understanding of 七情内伤 and 五智, like the five wills and the seven emotions, they were collected together based on many different patients and physicians' experiences, basically.
Okay, I mean this is so interesting. Obviously now with a lot of things that are moving forward now with data in this time, I think a lot of our medical knowledge and knowledge in general are very much based on research and scientific, things that needs to be seen. And I think for physical health with there is a lot more measurable data. Like you could take the blood, you could take the blood, you can see what's the bilirubin level, you can see what is the cholesterol. There's something that you can see, and that's what makes Western medicine also a little bit more easy to detect. Like if I take your blood and there is a bacteria, I know straight away that you need antibiotic, for example. But for emotions, it is something so hard to measure. So it is interesting to see how traditional Chinese medicine comes in looking at it a more holistic kind of perspective.
Yes, yeah. I do think the problems that we feel with Chinese medicine is the same in for looking at mental health, because there's so many factors that come into producing one emotion. So I can't really say that okay, serotonin is the main factor for happiness. There could be a certain amount of dopamine in the mix. You have no idea exactly what other chemical reactions there are to produce emotions. So when I think the problem that we're going down the Western route is that you have a particular type of medicine and you have two people with similar presentation. So, for example, ADHD. You give one person the same medicine, you give both of them the same medicine, and one reacts differently from the other. So then Western medicine would say, hey, I don't think one of these has definitely not ADHD, But Chinese medicine sees pathology in stages. So you could have two people with the same presentations, but to different degrees. Maybe they're at different stages. So that's the exciting part about Chinese medicine, is that through empirical evidence, we managed to come up with different stages for not only physical ailments but also emotional impact as well. So we can treat. I think we can cut a little bit deeper, and we also have different more techniques to help with a certain stage of the illness. Yeah.
Okay, I think because this is kind of like, we are going down the route of, there is, for all the audience, there is no comparison of like, which one is better than another. Disclaimer, please. It's just kind of like,
Definitely.
it's interesting to discuss. And maybe we'll bring back a little bit more about the emotions part. There's actually something that I'm quite interested in. For example, when you're talking about the five emotions and the organs, the cardinal organs, right? So if let's just say there is somebody that has gone through like anxiety, so anxiety has got some symptoms such as palpitation or maybe insomnia. Like how does it affect our internal organs for an example of anxiety?
Okay. So some what are some of the normal, if we think about it, the normal presentations of people with anxiety is most often overexcitation, and then after that deep fear, right? Deep fear for the future. So if we look at the five elements and cardinal organs, they have this relationship. I'm not sure if you've seen it. It's like a pentagram, basically the
Oh,
five organs.
do you wanna share the
Yeah, that would be.
okay, let me
Should I share my screen?
yeah, can you share your screen over there?
Yes.
Can?
Does that work?
Let me see. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, that works. Okay, there you go.
Yes. So they have this we call it 相生相克 basically, where you have the heart, the spleen, the lungs, the kidneys, and the liver. Those are the 5 cardinal organs. And then for each organ, you see a specific emotion that is being attached. So most of the time, fear and joy is where, in between, is where the anxiety lies. Um, Anxiety is a very complete. It's more of a, so we have the very clear cut kind of symptoms. Like for example, if a person has difficulty with anger, then we will go straight into the liver. But then we also have the more complex cases. Like for example, anxiety is a mix of spontaneity, so happiness and joy, and then after that, very quickly, fear and anxiety, a lot of fear. So it's usually treated between heart and the kidneys. You so that this bridge in the middle.
Yeah.
Here. Yeah. The like you mentioned just now as well, insomnia and heart palpitations tend to be some of the symptoms that are associated with anxiety. So insomnia is the relationship between the kidney and the heart that regulates your sleep. The water of the kidney goes to quench the fire of the heart, and the fire of the heart warms the water of the kidneys. So when they are in harmony, it allows the proper flow of yin and yang to the body, especially at night when the yin is supposed to be on the outside, protecting the body, and then the yang qi is supposed to be on the inside, helping with repair and function. So if there is an imbalance in any one of them, whether the kidney water is too much, so that is when fear becomes overwhelming and you become frozen, or then you start to see more kidney symptoms like going to the toilet very often, having cramps in the body, lower back pain, maybe heel pain, a little bit of dizziness or tiredness, fatigue. That comes with fear or the kidney system. And then you've got the opposite when sometimes the heart fire becomes so overwhelming that it overrides the kidney water. And that's when you get insomnia, when you start waking up in the middle of the night because the yang qi is supposed to be kept inside, but it runs out because the yin qi is not enough to keep it captured inside. So you start to get dreams, agitated thoughts, you become antsy, because you can't sit down, so you're always fidgety and so on and so forth. So balancing the relationship between the kidney and the heart will become our priority. We call this 心肾不交. That means basically the kidney and the heart are not talking to each other. So you have to discover where the symptoms truly lie. For example, if you have more heart palpitations, you have more antsiness, more fire, throat pain, soreness, maybe sensitivity of the gums and so on and so forth, then we will look more towards quenching the heart fire. If you have opposite where you're frozen, you don't know what to do, or more than not, then you feel fearful of taking the next step, you don't want to go to work, you find it difficult to get out of bed kind of condition, then we would work with sort of warming up that kidney water, or basically ensuring that your kidney yang is there to limit the kidney water. So that's how Chinese medicine would approach that. The symptoms are just as important as the emotions are actually a symptom relating to the abdominal organ. Yes.
Right. So it's okay. I see what you mean now. So it's because the whole concept is that all our organs are also attached to our emotions. It's kind of like we need to balance our emotions in order to balance our whole organ, our whole balance between the yin and the yang and am I getting it correct?
Yes, absolutely, yes. That the emotions are just as important, and that they're not unlike physical symptoms. So the expression of a particular emotion means it could mean that there is a bit of distress in that particular cardinal organ system.
Right.
So this is how
if that is it, right? Does it mean that, so if if there is too little of something, it is imbalance. If it's too much of something, it is imbalance. So does it mean that, it is then good that, sometimes we have anger because then that brings up
Yes,
like
absolutely.
oh right. So it actually makes having these emotions a, an ideal amount of have this emotion is actually good for us to balance our life.
Yes, definitely. So there are so many. I think once in a while, I do get a lot of stress patients here. People will come in to cry, or people come in to complain about something, and in the end, they always say this thing to me. Can you take away my emotions? And I always tell them the same thing as well. No, I can't. It's a normal part of your life, and you should actually just let your emotions flow, because to a certain extent, they are able to regulate themselves. It's just when you finding it difficult for you to regulate something, then I step in. I give you a little bit of help, but then after that, you should let it run as well. So emotions are actually a very important part of our regulatory system. Something like when you get a flu, you get a fever. You shouldn't stop the fever, because the fever, unless it gets too much, the fever helps you to kill germs. It helps you to make sure that that invader keeps in check. Those are signs of
Mm,
your body working. So similarly, emotions as well for us is important. When someone does something wrong, you should get angry. When you lose somebody, you should be sad. But then after that, you keep it in check. You make sure that it doesn't become the ruling emotion, or it
mm.
doesn't sort of have a sustained effect on you. That's it.
Wow. It changed so many it changed so much that I'm thinking because it makes it feels like it is normal because I think in nowadays in our life there is a lot of emphasis on you shouldn't feel sad or you shouldn't feel this way, and that actually makes people feel worse. So you feel
Mm.
unhappy because you are being unhappy.
Yes, yeah, that's true. That to us, if when we translate that into Chinese medicine, it's like 郁症, so stagnation. When you're given an emotion, and when an emotion is being produced and you're not allowed to express it, or allowed to let it turn into something else, like go through the whole circulatory, the order that we see in front of you right now, it it
Mm,
becomes you become susceptible to the sustained you become exposed to the sustained emotion, and that
mm,
leads to a mess up of the internal system, and that's when it turns into an illness, or it causes illness. So actually, you should express, or find a safe and comfortable way to express that emotion, and let it run naturally through the stages, basically.
right. And when we have emotion, instead of just treating the emotion, which is kind of like a symptoms, um it should be more of listen to what your body is trying to tell you.
Yeah, let it evolve. Like for example, there is a slight difference though between, for example, I do have friends or patients who have difficulties with anger. Like they go to work, they complain, and like, oh, I don't like my boss, or the
Mm-hmm.
project's going nowhere. I feel frustrated,
Yeah.
and then I tell
Yeah.
them, oh, you need an outlet, and then they will say, oh yeah, okay, so I'm going to go and do something to someone, or I will go and shout from the mountaintop. There's a difference between letting it go. Like some people will, when they're frustrated, say, okay, you know what, I'm just going to go home and I'll soak. Or let me just go and plan for the future. Let me go and watch a nice drama or video. So that's more like
Mm,
your evolving of the emotions. But you
right.
don't want to perpetuate it. You don't want to go back and think about the situation, or then you do something that makes you more angry, in a sense. So that's that subtle difference of how to express yourself. Yeah.
Mm, okay. Okay. And right, so you shared basically about, the five cardinal organs and how it is part of the physical health. So I think maybe with the next thing that I will be interested in asking is that then what is something that we can do on our own to, balance this thing out or manage the stressor basically.
Yes, that's a very interesting part of this theory. So inside the diagram,
Mm-hmm.
notice there is the green circle on the outside, and in the middle there is the red one. So
Mm,
the red star in the middle says control. In Su Wen, or in 1918, basically, one of the earlier books, it mentions about using certain emotions to curb other emotions. So
right.
sometimes your body already does it, and you don't know that. Like, for example, sadness. Let's look at sadness. The arrows are not quite clear, but so over here, sadness actually curbs anger, right?
All right.
Yes. So the lung sadness curbs the anger, and most of the time, if you take note, like some people, they will get angry, they get so angry, and then suddenly they burst into tears.
Mm,
So it is seen as the body's natural way of dealing with the anger, and if that happens, fine, you don't have to do much to regulate it. But if, let's say,
right.
yeah, it's so interesting, which is true. For example, when people are fearful, then when you get them to sit down and you get them to plan out, the future, have them to look at a specific plan and to think, suddenly their fear disappears as well. Or when you have uh, too much sadness, then of course you make someone happy, like give them a hug, start smiling at them, so forth, and the body naturally picks it up and it evolves on its own. So then it's kind of like if you get a overwhelming emotion, it gets stuck in that particular cycle. All you have to do is to get it to move and to evolve into then another emotion, and then the homeostasis starts again. Usually, like a lawnmower,
Mm,
just need to give it a little bit of a oomph. At times, sometimes, for example, on certain days, maybe you're stuck with a certain emotion for many days, like you get angry over something, someone did something to you. Of course, at that point in time, in any type of emotion, you have to get rid of what caused it in the first place, or try your best to get rid of it. And then after that, um, then you can try evolving the emotions. So if, let's say, uh, let's take for example, um, you lost something, an item, and you're very sad about it because it has great sentimental value to you. Of course, you try your best to find it. You may or may not find it, but then after that, what you can do with the sadness is joy. Like, look for something that makes you happy. So most people will tell you that, oh, all you have to do is to start smiling. Or there are also some clinics like laughter clinics. They help people get through their grief. So that's one way that you can start with, by using the opposite emotion to help you to sort of curb the predominant emotion. So if you
mm,
spend too much time thinking at work, then does it mean you get angry? No, it's more of like the anger in this sense will be more of ambition, something to wow you up, something that you feel passionate about. Um, that will help you to get rid of the thoughts, like too much mental stress or too much thinking, basically too much planning.
mm.
If you fear something, then it will be good for you to have specific thought, because very often fear tends to be groundless. That we fear something that hasn't come yet. You have no evidence of whether it will work or not. You're unsure, and that surety can, in order to overcome that kind of fear, you need the surety. So thinking, making solid plans like a schedule, which I often advise my patients to do, to write down what they need to do in future, or what may help with the situation in future, very usually calms that fear as well, or at least helps with reducing some of that fear. So these are, and most of the time, some of these practical things that we all know, and we just have difficulty knowing when to do what. So Chinese medicine, this simple diagram sort of gives you a little bit of a start. And it's always, in anything, in getting better, whether it's a physical illness or emotional duress, just need to start. I think that's the most important thing.
That's definitely, like, no matter it's whatever it is, the first step is always the hardest, right? To start doing something. But
Small
but most
things.
of the time, once you start, you then will have a feeling of how it feels like. Then it's a positive or feedback loop that you start continue doing it. So
Yes,
I think it's really very, very fascinating. So basically, what we have talked about is that emotion is a part of our how it is formed. It's not just
yes,
kind
correct.
of, we are human and we have emotions, but in traditional Chinese medicine perspective, it's emotions that actually ties to your organs and how your physical health is going to function. And so it is, and I think that kind of it's really nice to know, because it also brings out a certain kind of acceptance, because we often feel be so hard on ourselves and says, I shouldn't feel this way, I shouldn't feel that way, but actually it is actually needed in order to balance our health system. And then
Yes,
you were sharing
absolutely.
that, with this star and this relationship, when we have a certain emotion, we lead to another emotion, it is actually the body trying to balance it up,
Yes. So
right?
we have some very interesting cases as well. Some of them coming to mind. We have a particular group of patients that have tinnitus or ringing in the ears, and the
Right.
different types of tinnitus they change depending on the condition. So I have one
Mm.
patient whose tinnitus, um, very often
So
we associate
tinnitus is,
yeah.
sorry, just so that everyone understands, tinnitus means that they can't hear, or they hear ringing, right? Is it?
Yes, it could involve a reduction in the ability to hear, but you basically
Right.
hear a screeching in your voice, like "ee," or crickets, basically. So it
Mm.
can be very debilitating, it can be very annoying. And most of the time, so the patients that come here with this condition, they usually have gone to see an ENT, and the ENT will say, "Oh, you're fine. It's just maybe you're very stressed." And yeah, and it's most of the time it's true as well. So we do help some of these patients to manage their stress. Um, uh, Also, when the ENT refers them over, and then we will look usually at the liver. So they will come,
Mm.
and we had a talk with a specific one of these lovely ladies, and she said that, yeah, I realized that whenever my workload increases, I get tinnitus, like the ringing gets worse inside my ears, and we associate tinnitus often like a ring with the liver system.
Mm.
So when we treat tinnitus, we also, apart from making sure that we give the right medication to help calm down the liver, to help with headaches, or make sure that the neck is free and that it's not swollen. We also tell her, okay, what's giving you. We talk about what kind of stress she's under, and um, mostly if it's frustration or anger, then how to release some of that. Um, how to release some of the anger is, of course, through um, not sadness, but to induce some sort of empathy, like that kind of watching a nice drama. And she realized that when she does do when her stress levels reduce, and then she does that proper expression of emotion, like taking some time off to rest or to catch up with sudden dramas that she enjoys, the tinnitus gets better as well. So that's that holistic idea that we treat the body
Mm.
as well as that emotional impact. But actually, that emotional is also physical in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So when someone has got, like, a lot of stress, or if if someone have a lot of stress, it might lead to them with a certain kind of, like, emotions that piles up, right? So if this stress is work related, that gives me a lot of fear. then this kind of fear piles up, and it will then affect my kidneys and my digestive system. And that is how it is linkage, and that's how you say that this emotions is a symptoms itself.
Yes, yes. And based on what symptoms we see in which cardinal organs, that's how we catch it and we treat it and we cut it at the root.
Oh, right. Okay. Okay. Here I'm gonna just pop in to check on everybody. And if you have got any questions, do pop into the comment so that we can get Cheryl to answer us.
Sure.
And
Okay.
yeah, and then the last thing that I wanted to ask is about meridian cycle. It's
Ooh.
how is the other than all this emotions, right? There is also a lot of times where people will say, "Oh, your qi is stuck at somewhere." So, could you elaborate a little bit more about that?
Sure. It's a very common question actually. So qi for us is uh, qi and xue. There's always two aspects to it. One where everything is grouped under yin and yang. So qi is more relating towards yang, which is activity, vibrancy, movement, and very often ethereal. That means it doesn't have a physical form. Yin qi tends to have more of a physical form. So like 血, 经验, they are more associated with coolness, with form, basically something that you can palpate. So qi, when we say qi, there is qi ji. Qi ji is basically the flow of qi throughout the entire body, from organ to organ, from meridian to meridian. There is a circular movement basically, and based on where your symptoms are, we can then determine how the qi is moving and where the qi is stagnated, basically. So, of course, we do have specific organs that are in charge of the flow of qi. For example, the lungs are in charge of the qing qi that goes out and protects the skin. The liver is in charge of qi flow within the body. And because it's in charge of the qi flow, it's also in charge of the qi sort of pushes the blood as well. So very often when people say, "Oh, I have aches and pains," and then I take your pulse and I say, "Oh, yes, you have qi stagnation," um, I'm often referring to the liver, or maybe something wrong with the liver. So the liver causes there to be an incomplete flow of qi, or the qi gets it either slows down or then it gets stuck somewhere inside the body. So we always say 不通则痛. That means if it doesn't flow, it causes pain. And then that is the etiology for pain in Chinese medicine. Yeah. But in terms of qi ji as well, when we relate it to the emotions, there is also an impact. So I didn't put it on my diagram, but basically each emotion also has its effect on your entire qi flow. So not necessarily talking about an organ specifically, but the flow of qi. So for example, 恐得气下. So when you are afraid or when you're fearful, your qi drops. And I think that is the origin for I just shit myself. The like, oh, I'm so fearful. or when you get fearful and you're like half excited, half nervous, you suddenly feel like you need to go to the toilet. Chinese medicine sees it as your qi flowing downwards or suddenly dropping. Then there is 怒则气上. So when you're angry, all the qi rushes upwards. And that presents itself in certain symptoms like your face gets flushed, some people get dizzy, or they lose consciousness. They get so angry that they faint in the dramas. Or then they get ringing in the ears, headaches, nosebleeds, or bleeding in the gums, sometimes regurgitation also. So it's perceived as the qi going upwards. Then the rest is 思则气结. So when you think your qi stagnates inside the body or it collects in a certain point, 悲着气消, when you're sad, your chi dissipates, so you feel weak and tired and fatigued.
Freaking
And then of
hell.
course,
This is so true.
So joy, I think, even though it sounds quite harmless, I would say, 喜则气缓, that means it calms down. But in very extreme versions, when qi wants to the point of it being stagnant, it can also cause stagnation, or then it causes complete non-movement, so we lose consciousness as well. So it's we are very, that's how the five wheels, they can affect qi. And then I think you notice also that I said 5 wheels and 7 emotions, so there's an extra 2, and these extra 2 are shock, which is like sudden shock, 惊蛰气霞 as well, actually. Yeah, it causes the qi to 惊蛰气乱, so it messes up your qi. And then the last one is yu, or worry, which is associated with sadness, and it has the same impact on qi as well. 悲则气小, so it causes your qi to dissipate. So the 5 wheels, which is the normal flow of emotional impact, and then the 7 emotions are basically the pathological side. So you don't expect to be shocked all the time, and shock is not something that your body can produce. Worry is also something often not something that you naturally produce. There must be something to make you worry, basically. But the 5 wheels are something that you can produce inside. You can even, if you think about it long enough, or you try to expose or try to create it in yourself long enough, you can actually create that emotion inside you. So you can create joy, you can create fear, you can create sadness, you can make yourself cry. You can create anger, you can overthink, but you can't overshock yourself, if you know what I mean.
Right. I get what you mean. So I can think about something for a long time and make myself sad, but I can't kind of like, hit myself and be like, be shocked. Right.
Yeah. So
okay, we have a question from Catherine. She's asking, can elaborate this in Mandarin? Just wanted to ask Catherine, what do you mean by these? Referring to, and then you can let us know which one. What is it that you want further elaboration? And okay, I think we are probably at the last 5 minutes, so I'm gonna the 5 elements. Is it the 5 emotions, or the 5 shock, or the 5 qi flow?
So the 5 wheels.
Yeah.
And
we're trying to squeeze out as much like information from you in 1 hour.
That's what you do. You squeeze information out professionally. I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, so while we wait for Catherine to get back to us about, what 5 elements is, do you mean the 5 wheels, the 5 where does your qi, the 5 ways the qi goes, or the 5 emotions? I've got one last thing that I wanted to ask, is that if that is the case about joy as being part of one of the emotions as well, right?
Yeah.
Does it mean that too much joy, it's also not good?
I think that's a great question. Yes. In fact, I once came in contact with a patient who, how do you say, he punctuates every single sentence with a laughter. But I'm not sure if you have seen pathological laughter as well. It does happen, and often it's because they're exposed to an immense amount of joy. So not like good luck kind of joy, but maybe someone said a joke, then they laugh too much, and then it just carries on. Something tweaks inside the heart, on the heart system, and it just carries on. So I did have a patient who will constantly punctuate every single sentence with a forced laugh. So like it was in pain. But he can't control it. He can't control the laughter. So in the end, it's about for that patient, we had to actually monitor his heart rate, his palpitations, because at times he would have something called a drop beat where or basically the beat doesn't go, his pulse doesn't go tuck 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 anymore. It goes tuck 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 tuck, and it will drop at normal times. This patient, we mentioned before also that 喜则气缓, so it basically it causes qi to ease out, and if it gets to the extreme, it can ease out so much that it disappears. So some of these people in the very extreme of having too much laughter, too much overjoy, or we call it euphoria, they can lose consciousness. We have people with heart palpitations, chest pains, difficulty breathing, and so on and so forth. So too much is also not good. But these are very extreme examples. Yeah,
so
and of course
everything in balance.
Everything in balance, yes. Yeah, I'm sure we experienced it as well. Sometimes you laugh until your stomach hurts. In that respect, yeah, it can cause it. Or sometimes you might even see some sort of self-regulation where you laugh until you cry. That's too much joy in that sense.
Right. So everybody on a wedding day is having too much joy, guys. Please control yourself.
No, that's too much alcohol. That's different.
Yeah. So Catherine comes back and says her question is about the 所谓相克.
Yes, 相克.
Yeah. Would you be able to elaborate this in Mandarin?
In Mandarin, okay, sure. 所以看我们的情志，他们有一个相克的交流。所以比如我们的心火会克肺经，所以如果心是有喜为志，所以喜伤心的话，如果你太过兴奋的话，它就会以后会影响到你的肺，然后肺会出现某些症状。如果你要克它的这个过喜的话，你可以用恐惧来给它克起来。所以有时候过喜的话，你可以去看，有些人会觉得啦，他们看某些恐怖戏的话，觉得不会有那种过喜。可是过喜真的这个症状很少见，通常是生气。如果有些人他们过生气的话，他们哭了一下子，他里面的肝出现的症状就会缓解。所以有时候我们说啊，你这样那么愤怒，你哭一下，把里面全部的他的这个郁结的情绪给它完全散掉啊，他们就会比较舒服一点。所以我们可以用这个相克的理论来控制你的某一些情志啦，或者让你的情志它的气机会比较舒畅一点。就是说，这样用深刻是用这样的方法啦。
所以以后如果有人生气的话，然后这个人生气到哭的时候，不要叫他不要哭，就叫他哭好，就比较好，对不对？
就是对，所以就是那种你同意，然后你说哎呀，你应该是一定很愤怒，一定很很急躁，对不对？然后他就会对，然后他说表达出来后，自然就会有时候啦，自然就会流泪啊。这种如果你看到他流泪的话，让他哭，因为这是你的身体自然缓解的一个方式。
OK. So I think Catherine 她有问说，在我现在 English Chinese。So 怒，他给我专门问关于怒的这个东西是 anger。So 如果是怒，刚才我们讲说是哭嘛，就是因为怒，你在那个星星的时候看到它是跟肺就是 sadness 相克，就是你可能会哭，然后还有 thoughts。 想法，
对，
那个又怎么样连接
thoughts OK，所以如果是因为我们如果看某一些我们的五字之内哈，它 Am I still using Chinese? Yes.
？Yeah, yeah, we can
OK
just use
OK
Chinese.
OK， 就Chinese switch back to Chinese，有时候我们会过词，尤其是读书人，他们读书太多啊，想很多东西啊，或者计划的时候，他们可能会熬夜啊去计划，那是可能会导致病理的一种思。那如果要控制思的话，我们怎么用怒来控制？是比较属于那种不是愤怒，是一种积极。我们 English 叫 passion，就是有让你积极的那种东西，不是让你过喜的东西，是那种我要做这个我对这个有兴趣的那种愤怒，好像一个愤怒的那种感情来克这种惰思想。所以呢，我们在自然环境会看到有些人他们工作后想的太多的时候，他们就会自然的我要去玩游戏，因为玩游戏的时候你就会可以发达里面生气啊，或者我要打这个人打那个人他自然就会缓解。这种是一种自然的愤怒，也不要太过所以可以用这个方法来治，不是说一定要玩游戏，是那种你有兴趣的、有 passion 的那一种东西，可以克制这个思商品的那种病理啦。
OK，so Catherine 讲说，我明白你的那个 control 的心情了。Yeah，so 如果我没有如果我理解对的话，以这个怒的例子来看的话，就是你怒的时候，你如果太生气过头的话，对你的
对，
肝就不好，对吗？然后
嗯，
你的身体就是 naturally 要 balance up 的时候，你就可以用 sadness 或者是用思想的东西来克这个怒。
对，我们通常是用 sadness 或者可以导致一种悲哀或悲的这种感觉。就比如，其实我们
嗯
通常是，如果你太生气的话，我们现在有一个方法就是 gratitude journal，对不对？感谢、感恩，就是把里面的你要谢的人给他写下来，然后可以表达你的你的感恩。所以这种感
嗯
恩也是一种饮水思源，它也是会导致一种悲因为你回去想我真的很感谢这个人。我们中医上其实是算是一种悲了，它也是照样可以克怒，或者去看一个让你伤心的电影也可以产生这种悲，一种自然的悲，而不是过于悲伤的那种东西啦。嗯，
OK，好，我们还有什么问题吗？应该是没有了。So，等一下我看一下。我听到我自己的声音谢谢医师。OK，我 wrap up and switch it back to English. Okay, so I
OK，
think today has been really a really good session, and I really appreciate you for coming up and share this with us because it is it really makes us look at emotion in a very different perspective in terms of it being essential or necessary for our body to even function and how is that impact into like our different organs and also how you can actually when I'm so angry that I cry is actually okay. It's body natural responses to try to balance it. And I think knowing that give us acceptance. And I think that's great. Okay, there is a last question that comes in. It says, 那结论
OK，
是生气导致伤心是正确的吗？
生气导致伤心，但是你的自然 于我们来说是你的自然反应，对那种你生气，然后突然流泪，是其实我们看是你的身体自然的调理的一种反应了。所以如果是你生气，然后你哭了后比较舒缓的话啊，那是 OK 的。可是如果你出现其他的病症的话，比如你突然不能呼吸啊，或者有点短气啊，张口抬肩啊那一种，就代表可能过度悲伤，然后伤到你的肺。或者如果你觉得你生气后就头痛啊，或者有时候有些人会流鼻血啊，还是眼睛有一点干涩的话，那就代表你的生气已经有点过度，然后它已经伤到你的肝。如果是伤到你的肝的话，就可以采取某些治疗的方法，比如有些人喝一点薄荷茶，因为薄荷茶它有疏肝理气的功能，它喝下去就比较缓解一点。可是如果症状还是继续发作的话，那应该去求医，这个还是最好啦。就是这样说。
嗯嗯，OK okay then. Thank you everybody so much for tuning in
Thank you
today
for
as
your
well. This will
time.
be recorded on. Yay, thank you. And this will be recorded, and so feel free to share with friends or family that's gonna benefit from it. It is going to be on Facebook. It's going to be uploaded to Instagram as well as YouTube. And yeah, so thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you, Cheryl, for sharing all your being so generous with your knowledge as well.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Okay. Yeah, sorry.
Uh, no, it's such a it's such a complicated topic. Thank you for your patience as well. And yeah, it's been a true joy.
Okay, all right, everyone. Thank you very much. Bye bye. We'll see you soon.
Bye.